Hey everyone, Jamie Magic here. I wanted to thank all of you for your comments, your really thoughtful shares in regards to the last video that I did about how to deal with difficult people and when you find yourself triggered by difficult people. And I wanted to respond to some of the comments that I saw on my Facebook page about the video. Sounds like a lot of you are going through some relationship things or have an unresolved issue with someone, and that video about how to deal with people that trigger you seemed to come at just the right time. So I just wanted to follow up with a little extra support because it sounds like some of you are finding yourselves needing to have some uncomfortable conversations. And, uncomfortable conversations are things that we tend to want to avoid, right? Human beings don't like to feel uncomfortable. And there's a real reason for that. It's because we are hardwired to protect ourselves against any kind of threat to our self esteem, love, and security and safety. Okay, so we have subconscious programming that actually keeps us from putting ourselves in any positions that would threaten the way that people feel about us, or how much belonging we feel, or we don't want to look bad, we don't want people to think of us as a bad person, or we don't want to be ashamed, right, in any way. So that's the self-esteem part. And then obviously we are hardwired to protect ourselves from any kind of threat to our survival or our safety. So that's a big subconscious program that we will bump up against whenever we have to have a conversation with somebody and we feel like we have to put ourselves out there and be vulnerable and be powerful and be clear. What tends to happen is that we tend to react instead of choose our response. And when we react from any of those subconscious programs that are running, the self-esteem, love, or security program, right? If any of those programs, and it's not if, it's which one or which combination of the program is running. If you find yourself having to have a conversation with somebody and you're feeling really uncomfortable about it, it's the discomfort that you're feeling is actually you are experiencing yourself bumping up against your own subconscious programming. So there's a part of your mind that feels like it needs to defend itself against this threat that it feels from this impending conversation. But if you come at a conversation from a place of defensiveness, you're going to have a confrontation, not a conversation. So I really wanted to show up here today for you guys and say, listen, friends, if you have to have a conversation, it's making you feel uncomfortable, and you would love to have some conscious communication and non-defensive communication and really create a new possibility with this person, that is absolutely possible. And there are ways that we can do that. So let me share some Jamie magic with you. Okay. So first of all, congratulations that you're finding yourself in a position where you have to have an uncomfortable conversation, because that means you are going to learn something. You are going to grow. This is fertile ground for miracles, my friends. Believe me, I've never had any kind of significant transformation in my life that ever came from a time that I didn't have to be uncomfortable. I've never grown when I was comfortable. It's always been through making my way through those uncomfortable conversations and those uncomfortable moments that I've had to look at something differently, use the tools, do the work, do that inside job, and show up to it. And that's when things have changed for me. And that's when I've had significant growth. So congratulations that you find yourself in this moment of having to have an uncomfortable conversation. And I can't wait to hear what comes of it for you. But I would love to help make this a little bit more comfortable for you in the sense of giving you a blueprint and giving you some ideas that can help you consciously communicate with this other person. And that way, a peaceful resolution is much more likely. Okay, so again, remember, when we want to consciously communicate with someone, the first shift is we want to shift out of reactivity, right? That's when we're reacting involuntarily to an external stimulus. We're reacting to the other person or the situation. We want to press pause on that, and we want to step into responsibility. Responsibility means that we are choosing our response. Okay, we have an ability to respond, responsibility. So we're going to step into that. Responsibility in communication, in conscious communication, does not mean that you are responsible for the outcome or responsible for the other person's feelings. Okay, responsibility in conscious communication means that you are willing to be at choice about how you approach this conversation. And here's how you do that. There's three specific things you want to look at, okay? There's three aspects to this that will help you in this responsibility, okay? You're responsible for where you place your attention, okay? So put your attention on what it is that you're making the situation mean. So if you have to have a conversation with this person and you are feeling uncomfortable about it, place your attention rather than on what the other person did or didn't do, or he said, she said, shift your attention so that your attention is squarely on what you are making the situation mean. How have you perceived it? Okay, so how do you feel about it? What is your emotional reaction when you think about having to talk to this person? And I mentioned your subconscious programming, how you are hardwired, right? We are hardwired as human beings to protect ourselves against any threats to love, self-esteem, and security. So place your attention on which one of those programs are you bumping up against right now. And it may be a combination of the three. It could be all three. And here's a little insider tip too. If you find yourself wanting to have this conversation perfectly, you want to cover all the bases, you want to control this conversation and do it perfectly, then you, my friend, are running into all three of those subconscious programs at the same time. And believe me, I know this well because this is what happens to me all the time. So you're in good company. But don't worry, just place your attention on it so you can get a sense of what it is you're afraid you will lose potentially by having this conversation with this person. Are you afraid that you're going to lose their friendship? Are you afraid that you're going to lose their respect? Are you afraid that they're going to think you're a bad person? Are you afraid that if you really speak your truth and have this conversation with this person, that maybe your child will be negatively affected, right? Or that it might affect someone else. So really take a look. Place your attention on what you are making the situation mean, and use that like little playbook for, your subconscious programming. Do you feel like you're going to lose something in the area of love, self-esteem, or security? That can be extremely helpful to like put it up against that context to just like kind of know where might you get defensive in this conversation, and deal with that first. Deal with that yourself. That's the inside job, okay? Don't work that shit out with the person in the conversation. Work that out beforehand, okay? So maybe take a few moments before you hop on the phone or before you write that email to sit with your own thoughts and do this work first, because this will help you get crystal clear about the next step in conscious communication, which is intention. Okay, so once you're clear, because you've placed your attention on your subconscious programming and what you're making it mean, what you might be feeling defensive about, now you can set the intention for how you would love this conversation to go. What is your intention for this relationship? Like, why do you want to have this conversation? Why does it need to happen for you? But the intention should be something that you would love to, be, do, or have as a result of having this conversation. How do you want this conversation to feel? If you're needing to have an uncomfortable conversation because there is an unresolved conflict, then take a minute to think to yourself, what would this situation feel like, look like, and be like if it were already resolved? Okay? For the highest good of all, what might that look like? Because that can be your intention. So for example, I've had to have so many uncomfortable conversations this year. It's ridiculous. That's one of the really amazing things about living in the time of COVID is that, you were just forced to have uncomfortable conversations with people who matter to you, and all kinds of people all the time, because all of a sudden, our safety was so threatened, right? Our health and safety were being threatened by this pandemic. And so, we had to have conversations about social distancing, masking. Have you traveled? Is it safe to get together? If you're a parent, you might have had to have really uncomfortable conversations with other parents who maybe wanted to have a play date with you and your child, and maybe you weren't sure that family was on the same page in terms of safety protocols, and maybe that wasn't a good fit, but you didn't want to hurt that parent's feeling. You didn't want to hurt the feelings of their child. You didn't want to disappoint your own children. Can you see how all of these feelings could make a simple conversation of, hey, do you want to get together for a play date, suddenly grounds for a very uncomfortable conversation, right? Where you're like, oh my God, they're going to feel excluded. They're going to feel rejected. They're going to think I'm judging them. My daughter might lose her friendship because I don't want to have this play date because I know they just flew to see family, a week ago, and we're not doing that yet, right? So I could get very stuck on the details of that story. But what I needed to do was take a step back and take a look at, okay, what am I making this conversation mean? And what feels threatened within me? Let me work that out. What is the solution that I could offer that would feel comfortable for me? Maybe I just, my intention becomes setting a clear, healthy boundary, but also offering a solution that is inclusive. Because if my fear was that I was going to lose love and self-esteem by being exclusive, not meeting this family for a play date, then perhaps the solution is to clarify that I do want to be inclusive with them. I just want to find a way that feels comfortable for my family as well. So the intention became communicating clearly what our boundaries were, but also that we were really open to finding a way to enjoy each other, because the friendship means a lot to us. Okay? So the intention becomes clear based off of what it is that you want to create, out of having this conversation. What is that possibility that you want to create? And the reason it's so important to place your attention on where you're getting defensive and set an intention that allows you to move towards a solution is that if you don't pay attention to where you're getting defensive, you are not going to have a conversation. If you're at all coming from a place of even subconscious defensiveness, you're going to find yourself in a confrontation, not a conversation. And that's what we're all witnessing online, on Twitter and on Facebook and in our families and, amongst friends, every conversation that feels so polarized because it's we can't disagree on anything, God forbid. If we have a different viewpoint or our values are slightly different, we feel threatened to our very core to have that conversation with someone. And that's because these conversations aren't conversations. They're confrontations based off of judgments that we're holding against the other person and that we're vehemently defending ourselves against. So let's just place our attention on what's really going on, and let's set an intention for what we want to create when we want to have a conversation with somebody because we care and we want to resolve a situation. Okay? And the last thing that we want to look at, the third aspect to conscious communication, in my opinion, would be expectations. Okay, so when you sit down to write an email or have a conversation with someone and you feel like it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation because you feel vulnerable about something, well, I think, first of all, it's important to own your own vulnerability, okay? It's okay to communicate why this conversation is uncomfortable for you. And in fact, in doing so, you immediately create connection and compassion. You're also letting that person know, it's you're laying down arms, you're being honest, I am uncomfortable about having this conversation because I don't want you to feel rejected or I don't want you to feel judged. I really hope that you can hear me from a place that I want to share with you my thoughts on this situation and how we can resolve it, because your friendship means a lot to me. And, so I want to know how I can help support our friendship through this. And I just want to share the things that I've been thinking, and I want to listen to your thoughts as well. Okay? So expect best intentions. Just hold a place for that other person, that they have it within them to be a good listener, open minded, helpful, that they actually do have your best intentions at heart as well, that they are not out to get you. Just be willing to hold a little space for them, that they're not like trying to hurt you. You know, we so quickly go to that place of they're wrong, I'm right. You know, they're trying to take advantage of me. They want to gouge me. They want to, use me for this. Or instead of assuming that they have good intentions for you as well. Okay, our fear of what we might be getting threatened with here is what tends to make us immediately make people in our lives who we actually like a lot, sometimes love, we make them into these perpetrators in our minds because of these stories that we create. And these stories that we create about them and the situation and ourselves are stories that our subconscious is projecting because it wants us to be safe. It doesn't want us to lose love, self-esteem, or security. So it's really trying to protect you. But if you can assume for a moment that the people in your life have equally good intentions, then you can more comfortably open up to them and speak with them. And that way you guys can work together from a place of like, okay, how can we help each other? So again, I'm going to go back to one of my favorite ideas, which is when we catch ourselves being critical of another person, of a situation, or of ourselves, that is a great opportunity to step into curiosity and think, how else can I see this? What could be possible here? What might this conversation actually open up in this relationship that could be a growing experience? And what do I need to look at, and what am I pushing up against in my own mind that's causing me to feel uncomfortable? Because if you have to have a conversation with someone, and you're feeling at all uncomfortable about it, it's not the other person that's making you feel uncomfortable. It's you're bumping up against your own subconscious programming, and it's your own hardwiring that's making you uncomfortable. So we can have connected, compassionate, conscious conversations with people, even over really hard things. And like I said, like right now, we're almost through this pandemic. We're not quite there yet at the time of this video, but man, I've had to have so many uncomfortable conversations with people, literally like on the daily. So I'm getting a lot of real time practice in what I'm sharing with you. And I just want to share with you as well that anything I take you through, any process, any technique, any issue that I share with you, I've either been through it myself and I've already gotten through the other side, or I'm currently going through it and this is how I'm approaching it. I will never share information with you that I have not empirically, found my way through, that I don't have direct knowledge of, okay? Because I can only speak with conviction about the things that I have experienced myself. Anything else is just something, that I read in a book that I'm happy to discuss, but I wouldn't like get on a live video and actually post it to the world and say, hey guys, try this, unless I've done it. So every time I have used this technology that I'm sharing with you here, the idea of, the three aspects that you want to look at when you're having a conversation, and the three areas of your subconscious programming that might be causing it to be uncomfortable. When you use these ideas, you will find that you bring your authentic self to the conversation. And, as Brene Brown says in, Daring Greatly, her wonderful book, and, what is it? A Call to Courage. Is that her Netflix special? Oh my gosh, she is so fabulous. But she talks about how you cannot be brave if you're not willing to be vulnerable. And keep in mind that if you have a conversation with someone and you do all the steps I shared with you, you have to be willing to let go of your attachment to the outcome. You have to be willing to let go of your expectation of what that conversation might lead to, because you're not responsible for the other person's feelings. We're responsible to the other person in that we're responsible to them to bring our own best self to the conversation. We're not responsible for what they bring to it or for what they take away from it. So Please try to relieve yourself of the pressure of saying everything perfectly and covering all the bases. I truly believe that if you give yourself permission to go within and look at what this is bringing up for you, be honest with yourself and loving and compassionate and curious with yourself about it, you will then know what your intention is for that conversation. And if you can be brave and you can be bold, and by the way, that does not mean being a bossy bitch or, or an opinionated jerk, right? Being brave and bold just means that you're willing to love yourself and the other person enough to speak your truth as clearly and without defensiveness as you can. And the bold part means that you're willing to take what you get and not make it mean anything about either one of you. Okay? I hope this is helpful. And again, I want to keep this conversation going because, this is how I think we begin to heal as a community and as a society. We have to start learning how to listen to each other. We have to start listening to ourselves. And we're not going to heal anything in this world if we can't listen to each other and if we can't talk to each other. But it starts as an inside job. So listen to yourself first, talk to yourself first, and then have that conversation, even if it's uncomfortable, because that is the spiritual gymnasium. That's where you work those muscles and you get stronger and you get better. Okay? So as the great Maya Angelou used to say, when you know better, do better. Okay? So do better today. And until next time, we'll talk soon. This is Jaime Kalman Chipko, and I'll see you over at Inspired Healing and Awareness.